Upon turning 50, Duncan Visa decided to undergo a routine health check, even though he still felt quite healthy. The scars on his skin and fragments of metal in his body were like distinct marks, reflecting a perilous past. After a quick examination, the doctor found no serious issues aside from Duncan's smoking habit. Nicknamed the Black Kaiser, a legendary assassin, Duncan was a man who always kept his promises. He worked for Damocles, a company that required all assassins to retire at age 50 and donate $200,000 to an unnamed charity. Duncan's personal accountant informed him that in just 14 days, on his 50th birthday, he would receive a pension payment of up to $8 million from Damocles. Meanwhile, in Seoul, another assassin was also preparing for retirement, Michael Green. Unlike Duncan, Michael was enjoying the final days of his career with great excitement. He was celebrating his retirement with a charming woman named Cindy, who was experimenting with all kinds of chemicals that would give any chemist a headache. The party was in full swing, with Cindy getting ready for the festivities when, out of nowhere, Michael was attacked by a group of professional assassins. On them were Fundo, Hilda, Carl, Alex and even Cindy, all sent to end his life. Why would they need to kill Michael, a man still young and full of life? After completing their mission, the group left the stand as the force of Michael Green's final strike faded away. At Michael's funeral, Duncan met Vivian, a fellow assassin who now took on the role of managing mission assignments for the Killers, a group of assassins hired by Damocles. Vivian informed Duncan that their boss had assigned him one final mission before his official retirement, a revenge mission targeting the group of assassins who killed Michael. However, Vivian mentioned a Mexican assassin living in Belarus, insisting that he was the true killer, not the group. To motivate Duncan, Vivian promised him a $1 million payment for this last mission. However, Duncan remained silent, said nothing, and left the restaurant after collecting the documents. Returning to his home in Triple Oak, Montana, he received several messages on the Damel private network. Later, Duncan contacted Vivian, deciding to cancel another SIM card to avoid being tracked. Vivian immediately raised the offer to $2 million, requesting an advance payment, with the remainder to be paid once the job was completed. Although Duncan was still hesitant about accepting the job, he requested that Vivian upload the necessary information to the Damel server. Vivian then met with her boss, Mr. Blute, to get permission to transfer the funds. It turned out that Mr. Blute was planning to sell the company, and in order to increase its value, he had been orchestrating the murders of retiring assassins to seize their pension funds through a contract clause he had no intention of honoring. Instead, he decided to eliminate them as soon as they retired or their contracts ended. Yukon, in particular, was set to receive the largest pension fund of them all. Mr. Blute deliberately gave Duncan one last mission to set him up, and ultimately have him killed. Vivian advised her boss to pay Duncan his pension according to the contract, and avoid any trouble, warning that the Black Kaiser was an extremely dangerous man, and not someone to mess with. However, Mr. Blute stubbornly proceeded with his plan, while Duncan quietly began investigating everything related to the target. After gathering enough information, he decided to travel to Belarus to complete the mission without informing Vivian. Disguised as a maintenance worker, he arrived at the target's hotel, pretending to fix the door. Duncan intentionally made a lot of noise to irritate the Mexican man, causing him to lose focus. His plan went smoothly, and he quickly seized the opportunity to pin the target to the wall after dealing with a few of his henchmen. During his search, Duncan stumbled upon a file containing detailed information about himself and immediately realized that this mission had been staged to assassinate him. He grabbed a power drill to interrogate the Mexican assassin, hoping to get him to reveal who was behind the plot. However, the strong assassin knew nothing. After eliminating the target, Duncan took a photo of the body and called Vivian, informing her that he would accept the mission once he received the $1 million advance payment. Immediately, he sent the photo of the target's body to Vivian and demanded full payment within 24 hours. "Someone set me up here," he said, "and you'd better pray that you have nothing to do with this." Feeling frightened, Vivian hurried to meet with Mr. Blute, informing him that Duncan had completed the mission without any issues and was now requesting the $1 million payment. Vivian was furious and demanded that her boss quickly pay the full amount to Duncan, including his pension. She warned that the Black Kaiser would not sit idly by and might come after them, expressing concern that Duncan could turn against them.
Okay, do it.
Although her boss agreed to pay the remaining $1 million, he refused to pay Duncan his pension. Instead, he instructed the professional assassins to take down the Black Kaiser. After completing the mission, Duncan returned home, where he was constantly haunted by memories of a violent mission from the past. As he resumed his daily life, he noticed a new neighbor, Camille, who had just moved into the house next door. Duncan often ran into Camille at the convenience store and nearby restaurants. He noticed that she always seemed sad and was easily startled by the slightest noises. Clearly, Camille was going through a difficult time in her life. Over time, Duncan and Camille developed a deep connection, spending more time together. When discussing his job, Duncan shared that he had once worked in the funeral industry. He tried to support Camille in his own way, even buying her a gun and teaching her how to shoot. However, Camille couldn't pull the trigger and seemed very confused by the weapon, possibly due to a traumatic experience in her past. "It's okay, we'll find something else," Duncan reassured her. Meanwhile, the specialists assigned to track down Duncan were hunting for his personal accountant. They pressured him to reveal Duncan's whereabouts. The accountant submitted a file containing information about 4 properties that Duncan owned. Each property was located in a different state. However, since the accountant didn't know where Duncan was residing, the group of assassins decided to kill him on the spot. They then began checking each address in turn to search for Duncan. Their first stop was Florida, where Cindy appeared as usual in her flashy outfit. However, things quickly took a turn for the worse when the apartment they were looking for had been rented out, and the current residents mistook Cindy for some kind of service they had ordered. Failing to locate Duncan at any of the 4 properties, the ruthless group of assassins eliminated the tenants at each location. As they delved deeper into Duncan's records, they discovered he had made $200,000 money transfers to an unidentified recipient through a bank in Triple Oak, Montana. Hilda, after calling her boyfriend Mr. Blute, assured him that she would make sure to kill Duncan. Eventually, the assassins arrived in Montana and located Duncan while he was out buying another gift for Camille. On his way home, he unexpectedly ran into Cindy, the seductive expert, who was pretending that her car had broken down and asked Duncan for help, just as planned. When Cindy's phone died and she couldn't call for assistance, she was taken to Duncan's house. Cindy had a plan and informed him that help would arrive at 10 a.m. the next morning. After Duncan allowed her to stay the night, she began to warm things up by playfully teasing him, saying that he was quite charming for an older man. Duncan replied that he would never have anyone older than his father. They gradually explored the depths of each other's souls, while Fundo and the other assassins quietly prepared to ambush Duncan. Cindy was ready to support Fundo as he made his move, but before Fundo could pull the trigger, Duncan quickly dodged the attack, bringing Cindy into his line of sight. She was struck by a serious bullet wound in her shoulder, and Duncan immediately jumped off the bed to find cover as Fundo began spraying bullets throughout the house. Duncan tried to take out the girl with a throwing axe, but shortly after, Hilda and Carl burst into the house, only to discover that he had vanished. Duncan quickly pinpointed Fundo's location and ended the sniper's life with a fatal shot. Using the thermal scope, he easily detected Hilda by her hot breath and then took her down with a single bullet. He narrowly avoided a surprise attack from Carl, who unexpectedly appeared from behind and tried to strike. Right after that, Duncan immediately began searching for clues about who had sent the assassins to track him. During his investigation, he discovered the room key to a nearby inn. Upon arriving, he found Jane, a drug-addicted girl, drugged to the point of insanity. As she was drunkenly rambling, Duncan suddenly realized that Camille had been kidnapped by Alexei. The assassins' investigations had uncovered the special connection between Duncan and Camille. Through their investigations, Duncan stormed into Camille's house, but she had vanished. At that moment, in Blute's grand mansion, Duncan was furious to discover that he had killed his girlfriend. Vivian simply smirked and reminded him that she had warned him about this. "Don't be sad," she asserted. "You'll soon find another girl." Though the hotness factor has to be the issue, Vivian suggested that he should keep stringing Duncan along and just pay him his pension. But Duncan still refused, insisting that this was a personal matter. Determined to resolve the issue, Duncan decided to reach out to his old friend Porter, a retired assassin whom he trusted would understand Blute's plan. After Duncan explained the current situation, Porter revealed that Blute intended to eliminate Duncan before his retirement. He believed that Camille was being held captive in Blute's grand mansion. However, just as Duncan prepared to leave, Porter betrayed him, drugging him and rendering him unconscious. It turned out that Porter had secretly colluded with Mr. Blute, hoping to receive a reward for handing Duncan over. When Duncan woke up, he realized he was chained in Blute's underground dungeon, with only 4 days left until his birthday. Mr. Blute had planned to torture Duncan before ending his life on that day. During the torture, Blute continuously showed Duncan pictures of Camille, aiming to break his spirit. Camille was currently being held in a comatose state by a drug addict named Jane. On the third day, while Blood was stabbing Duncan with his favorite thin knife, a part of the blade suddenly broke off and got lodged in a piece of metal implanted inside Duncan's body. Furious, Blood slashed Duncan's face and stabbed him in the left eye, leaving a night of bloodshed. However, Duncan used the broken blade to unlock his chains the following morning. When the guards entered, Duncan caught them by surprise and quickly killed them. When Mr. Blood arrived, Dunk had the power, using the darkness to his advantage in eliminating as many guards as he could. Despite being injured and weak, Duncan was determined to escape and take down every guard in his way. Eventually, he reached out to his friend Jasmine, a gun dealer he trusted. She helped Duncan heal his wounds and provided him with some advanced weapons. Feeling stronger, Duncan called Vivian and offered to trade himself for Camille. Vivian agreed, but she and Mr. Blood had secretly plotted to betray him. But Therese, Duncan sought out an abandoned warehouse to set up his HAG, then called Vivian again to arrange a meeting at a train station the following morning. However, this time was different. He didn't rush to hang up or destroy the SIM card. This action led Vivian to track his. When confronted by Vivian, Duncan gave her a chance to back down, but she arrogantly believed she had cornered him and refused. As her team prepared to open fire, Duncan calmly raised his hands and activated the laser-guided heavy machine gun, taking out all of Blood's henchmen in the blink of an eye. The incident left everyone stunned as he spared Vivian's life, even though she was injured, and then moved directly toward his main target, Blood. Witnessing the horrifying scene through surveillance cameras, Blood panicked and ordered an increase in security around the mansion. However, when Duncan appeared, they chose to flee rather than confront him. Visla Blood tried to bring Camille to him, but it was too late. Black Kaiser suddenly appeared in his room, swinging an axe with a powerful strike, and Duncan beheaded Blood, putting an end to his greed once and for all. After that, Duncan rescued Camille and took her back to Montana to help her recover. While scanning Camille's bedroom, he accidentally came across old articles about a family that had been murdered many years ago. He was shocked to realize that it was the assassination he had carried out, based on misleading information. The memory of that mistake had haunted him all this time. And now he understood that the only survivor of the tragedy was a little girl named Camille. Although Duncan had been donated a substantial amount of money to help the girl over the years, he had never seen her again since that fateful day. Suddenly, Camille appeared behind him, holding a gun pointed directly at him. She told Duncan that all she could see was the face of the man who had killed her entire family right before her eyes and ruined her life. "I wish I had died that night. Why did you shoot me?" she asked, tears streaming down her cheeks. Duncan apologized and explained that things had gone wrong on the job. He understood that Camille had every reason to hate him and was ready to accept any consequences that followed. Next, he told her that killing him would free her from the pain. "Go ahead and do it," he encouraged, his voice trembling with emotion. Camille hesitated but ultimately pulled the trigger. However, surprisingly, Duncan was not shot. In that final moment, Camille turned to Duncan and asked him to help her find the person who ordered the murder of her family. He agreed, determined to help her seek the answers she had longed for.